Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Wicked Ends by Isla Vaughn, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1, Winter. Palms flat on the dirty window pane, I was frozen, transfixed by the two little girls on the dock. Puffy gray clouds hung low in the sky, and I could almost feel the slight bite of the breeze as it lifted their long strawberry blonde hair, making the strands dance in the wind. Too thin and long-limbed, they awkwardly tossed pebbles into the water. I could predict each movement as if it were my own. The tilt of the taller one's head and the way they stood close to each other spoke to something missing inside me. Seeing them felt like a cleaver to my chest, tearing and shredding me until I bled out on the dusty wooden floor. I know them. The dingy window allowed for a small view, and I desperately wanted to see more of the landscape. I couldn't. And is anyone else there? I felt like there was, and it made me crazy that I couldn't spot anyone. The hairs on the back of my neck and along my arms stood from some strange static or electrical current that charged the air, or maybe it was the sense of doom I couldn't shake. It's not safe, I repeated in my head, rising in volume, the rhythm merging with that of my palms striking the glass, warning them. It's not safe. The dock was old, and I swore I heard the creaks as they moved along the edge, playing a game of who could throw the small stones the furthest. I didn't like how close they were to the edge. Panic clawed at my throat, making it difficult to yell, but I tried to caution them. I couldn't shake the ominous feeling that they were in danger. My vision tunneled. I pounded my fists on the glass, screaming for them to get away from the water, to run. I had to get out there. I tore my gaze from the girls and searched the room, finding a single bed, one window, and no door. How can there be no door? Someone was coming. I could feel it in my bones. I beat against the glass pane with renewed effort, shocked that it didn't break. My heart pounded with a sense of urgency and my hands shook. I know what'll happen. I screamed as loud as I could for them to run. They can't swim. Sweat beaded along my hairline and rolled down my face. It was going to happen. I could almost hear the sound of a footfall. I backed up and threw my body against the window, only to bounce off, landing on the floor. There had to be a way to get free. I picked myself up and repeatedly hurtled my body at the wall until the room's edge expanded. It brought me closer to the dock. Then I heard it, the creak of the old rickety dock under my feet. I couldn't understand. A wall had never moved like that before. When I thought about it, I was snapped back into the room as if nothing had changed. It's a dream. Acute fear spread through me like wildfire. I didn't want to relive it because I knew one of those girls was me. The wood creaked again. Pain exploded along my back, knocking me off the dock. The next moment, I was underwater. I kicked and flailed my arms, the surface there, then gone. Blind fear added weight to the water. My limbs grew heavier. I held my breath as long as I could, and then I didn't. It was involuntary. I had no control over the quick intake of water. It went down my throat and into my lungs. Everything was heavy. Pressure surrounded me. I couldn't fight it. I woke with a gasp, air filling my lungs. My body remained heavy and my mind felt hazy like I was underwater. Crickets chirped outside, and moonlight cast a silvery glow through the window. I blinked the room into focus, but only managed to add confusion. Where am I? Faint light filtered through a window coated with grime. It was enough to make out dated wood paneling on the walls. Nothing was familiar. A damp mustiness clung to the air. Dust infiltrated my every breath. The tiny particles tickled the back of my throat, and I coughed. My heart pounded in my chest at the noise. Did I alert someone I'm awake? The violent beat of my heart matched the one in my head. Bile climbed up my throat, and my vision swam. Dark spots converged on the edge of my blurry vision as more information trickled in. I lay acclimating to my surroundings. I wasn't in my dorm room at Thane University. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't move my arms. The nausea increased, my stomach cramping painfully. Then I felt the bite of plastic on my skin, securing my hands behind me, and a new wave of panic sent racking tremors through my weak limbs. I fell back on the bed, the rough sheet scratching under my exposed skin. My ears strained for sounds in the rest of the house. There were none, just the faint lapping of water coming from somewhere outside. I tried to swallow past the Sahara that was my mouth, but it did little to relieve my urge to throw up as my stomach turned and my head throbbed painfully. The dark spots united, and I knew I couldn't remain conscious much longer, despite the realization that none of it was a dream. With each measured breath, my heartbeat slowed until I realized what had happened. Someone had kidnapped me. Chapter 2. Shane. Blue and red LED lights flashed with glaring brightness. I shifted, unable to find a comfortable position with my arms secured behind me, handcuffs biting into my skin. Cars slowed as they passed. I couldn't blame them. It was a goddamn spectacle. 2 squad cars surrounded my SUV on the side of the highway. I tracked the 4 officers talking in front of the car I was trapped in. I hated this feeling of frustration and helplessness. What the hell are you doing, Winter? My mind warred between disgust and worry. She's missing? The officer had told me she was. It was yesterday morning when I'd left her bed. What the hell could have happened between then and now? As I sat alone in the back of one of the cop cars, my mind spun with the events of the past few minutes. I replayed everything from when the siren's word and the blue and red surrounded me. My hands had gripped the wheel tightly as I pulled over to the highway shoulder. They had me get out of the car, place my hands on the back of my head. When I tensed, the officer closest to me had reacted. After having me get down on the ground, he slapped handcuffs on me. After that, only after they had me in the back of the squad car had they shown me the evidence bag they'd collected from the crime scene. My wallet had sat inside the sealed plastic, painting me as the suspect. And for what? They told me that too. Abducting Winter Patton. The driver's side door opened and the most senior of the 4 officers got behind the wheel. His partner followed a few seconds later on the passenger side. He swiveled, so our gazes locked. I need to clarify that you're not under arrest. You're being brought in for questioning. Not buying it. Then what's with the handcuffs and why am I in the back of a squad car? Officer Myers viewed your reaction as a threat and cuffed you. A threat for what? I growled, my body straining against the restraints. I had done nothing except glance at the other officers. He ignored my question as we pulled into traffic, so I went with another angle. What you have on me isn't good enough reason to bring me in this way. But it was, and I knew why they'd slapped the cuffs on me. I probably looked threatening, especially since I had both height and muscle on the officer facing me. They said nothing else as we flew along the highway, so I kept my thoughts to myself. It wouldn't do me any good to argue with them. Excuse me. Too soon, we took the exit, made a few turns, and then parked in the lot associated with the police station. They got out. Officer Benton, I looked at his name tag when he leaned down, opened the rear door, and grasped my upper arm as I got out. We climbed familiar cement stairs to the large entrance. I'd been to the station one too many times. The heavy metal door buzzed as the lock disengaged, and then we were walking inside. My gaze skimmed over the cops who followed my path through the desks. The officers looked through me with desensitized and dead eyes, the stares dripping with open suspicion, labeling me a common criminal, fueled my resolve to make whoever was responsible for my arrest pay tenfold. I wasn't deposited in front of a desk, which surprised me. Instead, Officer Benton led me to an interrogation room. He removed keys from his pocket. Turn around. I complied because I wanted the cuffs off. The clink of metal sounded as they fell from my wrists. I rubbed where the unyielding metal bracelets had bitten into my skin, easing the sting as I turned to face Benton. Wait here. Someone will be in to question you shortly. He yanked the door closed, locking me in. I paced the length of the 8x10 room, thinking about how crazy things had gotten. I'd come face to face with my childhood nemesis, Winter Patton, the one who'd brought me so low when I was young that I thought about ending it all. We hadn't seen each other in years, and bonus, she hadn't recognized me. I couldn't resist the chance for payback and had plotted for Winter fucking Patton to fall for me. Once she did and I uncovered her darkest secrets, I would dump her and expose who she really was for all to see. That had been going well, except I'd used a fake name, Landon, and she found out yesterday morning, after we'd spent the night together having the best sex of my life. My worry for her was a cancer eating at me from the inside out. Is she okay? I needed to know. No answers were forthcoming, and I glared at the locked door as I pivoted and prowled toward the other end of the room, only to repeat the useless exercise. One thing after another had plagued me that year. Nothing had gone smoothly from the summer to that very second. And that wasn't all. I couldn't help but wonder if anything from my past had connected the events leading up to this day. Where does that leave me now? With another problem on an ever-growing list. I'd barely gotten past the potential charges of involuntary manslaughter after my single punch had killed Luke Green and nearly stolen my future. Then Joe Renshaw, my biological father, and the man who abandoned Mom, Phoenix, and me, wanted a second chance. I was all about those and was trying to make amends by pressuring me to go into business with him. The only saving grace was that he had nothing to do with my arrest or with Winter. And on top of it, and to top it off, I'd made the mistake of sleeping with Professor Cindy Elian, not one of my professors, but a cougar who'd proven to be a psycho stalker when I ended what I thought was a casual hookup. Jealousy ruled her when it came to any female she spotted me with. Could she have done something to Winter? It was a long shot, but maybe. I dropped into one of two chairs in the room, my head falling into my hands. Frustration rolled through me, with the power and strength of ominous and threatening thunder rumbling overhead. What I wouldn't give for a fight, but the underground fights were a thing of the past after killing Luke Green. It was an accident. It was an accident, but that doesn't matter, does it? He'd swung at me and I'd returned the favor. When he'd fallen and hit his head on the corner of a cement step, our lives changed forever. I had to live with knowing I'd killed someone and his future had been snuffed out. So many things were stacked against me and I was barely holding it together. I shoved off the chair and again paced from one length of the room to the other. With each rotation, I felt my future slipping away. Football, college, seeing my brother's kid grow up. But underneath it all was a strange sense of worry for the girl I wanted to hate and hated to want. What the actual fuck had happened to Winter? The lock disengaged audibly and the door opened enough to let a man inside. Shane Bennett? I locked eyes with a tired-looking, somewhat older man who was not in uniform. I waited for him to tell me who the fuck he was. His lips curved into a smirk as if he knew what I was thinking. I'm Detective Jameson. He motioned for me to have a seat, waiting until I did before he spoke. I have a few questions. It was messed up. I didn't like my position, and Granddad would have my ass if I said anything without a lawyer present. I occupied one side of the table, and while he took the other seat. I wanted to know what was happening and why someone had set me up, because nothing else made sense. Detective Jameson flipped open a folder. Is your name Shane Bennett? Yes. I saw no reason I couldn't answer that. You're a freshman at Thane University and a star defensive player. I nodded. Where is he going with this? The same Shane Bennett who struck Luke Green, a punch that resulted in his death. Everything in me stilled. I felt the edges of the trap he'd set start to close around me. Can you tell me where the girl is? I don't know anything about a girl. I assumed he was talking about Winter since the cop had said my wallet had been found where she was taken, but I wouldn't fall into a trap, and it felt like one. You haven't been arrested. My eyes snapped back to his. Bullshit. You're here for questioning. So nice of him to straighten that out. Then I'm free to go since they haven't charged me with anything. Not quite. You're a suspect and I need answers. It's truly in your best interest to talk. I clamped my lips shut and fought the urge to cross my arms over my chest. We have a witness who saw someone pick up the girl behind her dorm building. Her phone was found on the ground along with your wallet, like she dropped them when she was grabbed. The man could have been your build and height, and the vehicle was a dark SUV. That told me whoever saw the man hadn't gotten a close enough description. What they had with the witness was circumspect. If you have nothing to hide, answering a few questions won't hurt. Jameson threaded his fingers on top of the table. I said nothing. We sat like that for a few minutes. If you tell me where she is, we can make a deal. I didn't move. I locked everything down hard so no emotion showed. It was a game, a very dangerous one, and I would not lose. I want my lawyer present. He sighed, then retrieved a phone and handed it to me. I wanted to call Uncle Lucas, but I didn't know his number by heart. I did know Granddad's. Thank God I had his number memorized. I got no privacy as I called Granddad. Hello. His deep, gruff voice sounded through the speaker, and I almost sagged in my chair, but the detective was watching. Granddad, I need a lawyer. A girl from school is missing and I've been arrested. Brought in for questioning, the detective interjected, and I ignored him. They've gone too far, Granddad growled. Don't say a goddamn word, son. I'll send the lawyer there immediately. With no goodbyes, Granddad hung up as he always did. He had a savage side, and it was what I needed most in my situation. I just had to hold out until the lawyer got there and sprang me from whatever trap Jameson was leading me into because he had said someone had taken her, not me. That my wallet was there complicated things, but he didn't say the eyewitness had seen me specifically. Someone rapped their knuckles against the metal door. Detective Jameson got up and opened it a crack, listened to whatever was said, then left the room, shutting the door behind him. I waited. It wouldn't be too much longer. The room was empty except for 2 chairs and a metal table bolted to the floor. The only window in the ugly tan room was the small one beside the small one in the steel door. I checked behind me for a clock, but there wasn't one. I had to have been in there for a few hours, making it sometime after lunch. I leaned back in the chair and let my head fall forward for a second, my mind wandering to the call with Granddad. Authority had always surrounded him when he spoke, and when he spoke, in the demands he made, and in his larger-than-life presence when he entered a room. He wasn't perfect, but he was my, Phoenix's, and our mom's family. Worry thrummed through my mind about how I was giving Joe a second chance, which would cause Granddad to blow a gasket when he found out. And he would find out. I just didn't want it to be right then. 5 minutes passed, then 10, or what I assumed was that length of time, and still no one came to open the door and get me out of there. The longer I sat, the angrier I got. Winter being gone reeked of a setup. My heart pounded a steady rhythm, and my body grew tense. I was the fool who'd slept with her, thinking I would wrap her around my finger and hurt her in the worst possible way when it came time, just like she destroyed me with bullying when we were kids. But the joke was on me because she'd won up to the stakes and had taken things to a criminal level with her stunt. She must have orchestrated the abduction, and when a nagging doubt that she hadn't crept into my thoughts, I stomped on it until I could no longer hear it. I could barely restrain myself from the urge to storm out of there and make her confess by whatever means necessary. The door opened and my lawyer, Frank Nicholson, appeared. I'm here, Shane. I didn't do anything. I needed that out in the open and wanted him to believe me. I may have been guilty of some things, but Winter's abduction, if that was even real, wasn't one of them. Frank shoved his hands into the pockets of his dark blue pants, his suit crinkling around them. The police have Winter's phone with a text message traced to a burner phone with a conversation about your wallet, telling her to meet you outside and by the back. I don't have a burner phone, and I didn't message Winter about my wallet. I didn't even realize it was missing. They also have eyewitnesses. Anger raced up my spine. No one named me because I wasn't there. I needed to think it through, and I uncurled my fist, flattening my palms on the cool metal table. Even if I hadn't told everything to the detective, I needed to with my lawyer. I spent the night with Winter the night before last. I stayed at mom's last night, and I was on my way back to Vaughn when the police picked me up. My time is accounted for. I didn't do anything to Winter. Good. Frank nodded, and I appreciated his calm professionalism. Sit tight and don't say a word while I get this straightened out. He didn't have to tell me twice. I caught a glimpse of Detective Jameson before the door shut. He stood to the side, his frustration evident in the frown that carved deep lines around his mouth and between his brows. Denying I was involved didn't appear to matter because it seemed no one at the police station believed me.